At the end of the day, that's going to help your bottom line. You're going to drive your revenue up, drive your expenses down. That's great. Your business is going to thrive more because you can use AI models to help you start to identify those things. So it's disruption in a great way, but you have to know how to implement it to find those disruptions.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our latest episode of Care to Lead. Today, I want you to meet Sean Richards, Head of Quality and Growth at Vincit, a global software development and design leader. Sean spearheads the U.S. market initiatives, driving growth strategies and fostering powerful communication. Welcome, Sean. I'm glad to have you here.
Thank you, Cynthia. I'm glad to be here.
So can you share a story of what got you here? What got you to Vincit and what made you go that direction?
Yeah. It's actually an interesting story. Well, I think it's interesting, but I actually was a customer of Vincit's to start with. So I was actually, as I say it, on the corporate side versus the service provider side for quite a while, and hired Vincit to be a service provider to me in a role that I had in a previous role where I needed a mobile app developed for a company that I was a marketing leader for. And they were recommended to me as a high quality service provider. We engaged in about a 2-year implementation of a software development project together. And through that time, just really got to know the team and really worked through the process of that software development. And I just came to love all the creativity, the expertise they brought to the table, just the process they went through, the thinking, the design and the strategy. It was really inspiring to me. And when it came time for me to decide to leave the company that I was at, I really just couldn't think of a better place for me to be. And I was geographically changing my location as well. So I had approached Vincit at that time with the idea of helping expand their business into a new state. So married up the idea of helping them expand and entered into the world of Vincit through that ways.
Well, I love how you created your own opportunity there. And I want to unpack that a little bit more, because I'm always telling executive leaders, when they're in a role, don't just be like happy, like right here, like always be looking within your organization and outside of your organization, like where can you expand and grow? Because you never know when you're going to need to create your own opportunity. So that was really smart. And I want to go back to that. But I think, to be fair to our listeners, we should talk a little bit more about what Vincit does. And you know, and I know, but I don't think we even covered that. So let's talk about the company first.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Vincit is a global software design and development company. So we help businesses, at its simplest form, we help businesses solve business problems using technology. So where a company is looking to advance their digitalization or solve problems to accelerate their market or drive revenue or increase operational efficiency or whatever problem they're looking to solve, or enter a new market or bring something like a product to the market or advance, any kind of their goals or initiatives where technology has an advantage to bring them to that. We help build custom software. We help consult on the technology side to build process or automation. We help design their user experiences. And we do that through a lot of our consultants, our designers, our software engineers, our architects, and help them bring that to life through technology. So we're very focused on how leveraging code and design can bring all of that to light.
It's around 500 employees. Did I get that right?
Globally, we're actually closer to 850. So we're
good.
In Europe and United States and several countries kind of spread throughout Europe as well.
What size company is your best customer?
What size company?
Yeah, like you're going to work with a solopreneur? Or are you going to work with like GM?
Yeah,
or somewhere in between?
To date, we do have the whole spectrum, small to medium businesses, all the way up to enterprise business. Our sweet spot, if I were to just generalize, it would be the medium, large businesses. And our mid markets are a lot of our customers, but the enterprise space would be, if you were to look at more of like the manufacturing or the public sector, we have enterprise customers there. We tend to do a lot more work in the European markets with our SAP customers. Our manufacturing in the US, we work with a lot of retail brands. In the more mid-sized to large size businesses, we work with a lot of funded startups to help them bring their market or their products to market. So we do work with quite a spectrum of customers, but really it's the imperative thing for us is that there is a vision, there is a an understanding of where custom software is the kind of crux of what's necessary, where a company has a vision of something that doesn't exist. It's not a off the shelf solution that exists to bring them to market. And that's where we really fit in. We've identified something doesn't exist and it needs to be created. And that's where we really slide into the, kind of the premium delivery of value to our customers.
That's awesome. So, can you tell me a little bit more about how, because this article that we started with in Authority Magazine was about AI and how AI is disrupting industries. And I'm curious, in one way, it's like self-explanatory how AI is disrupting your industry. But would you like to speak on that a little bit more and be more specific than yeah, it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a hot topic for
It
sure.
is.
And it's disruptive in great ways, in a lot of different ways too. I mean, there is, and AI is a broad topic, for a lot of great reasons. There's in our business, I'll take one aspect. Our company is adopted AI tools very broadly for our own productivity, for our own use, and for our own efficiency. So, day to day, our own engineers use AI tools in their coding practices, for example. So, we're definitely using these tools to improve our actual productive use of coding, for instance, finding ways to improve our coding output, the value of those things, finding bugs or code improvements, doing automated testing using AI tools such as Microsoft's Copilot. So that's improving productivity and efficiency in our own ways, which at the end of the day improves our ability to deliver our customers. So our use of tools is helping our customers. We're also building a lot of tools on top of these tools for our customers. So where we see the advantage of these large language models that have been produced by these other companies, we're now taking and building layered models on top of them. So they exist. We don't have to build those things again because thankfully all these companies built them for us. Now we're producing things that help companies take advantage of them. So building custom layered integrations on top of those, just ways for companies like ours to take advantage of small, more granular ways of using these very intricate models is really great. So the disruption is really coming in positive ways where companies can now take advantage of very complex things, but take a business case and say, for instance, manufacturing, I want to know how to increase the output of my production. Well, you can use AI models to start to find small operational efficiency things within your assembly or your manufacturing process to figure out how to produce more units, or maybe to do like staff optimization through your manufacturing process to reduce your labor cost. Well, at the end of the day, that's going to help your bottom line. You're going to drive your revenue up, drive your expenses down. That's great. Your business is going to thrive more because you can use AI models to help you start to identify those things. So it's disruption in a great way, but you have to know how to implement it to find those disruptions. Of course, AI, the negative side of AI disruption is the nature of its complexity and people not understanding it and not really knowing how to explore it and maybe choosing to, I don't know, act defensively against it. The disruption could come from avoidance or the defensive posture around it.
Right. So you are in a leadership role. I'm curious if you have seen AI disrupt or change the way you lead in any way or the way your organization is led internally.
I wouldn't say it's changed the way we're leading with the exception of being stronger advocates within our organization to have more voices come to the forefront. So really pushing our employees and our leaders to be more outspoken about taking advantage of these things. So for instance, we've asked a lot of our employees to become certified and experts in these spaces for the purpose of our organization having a stronger stance and becoming the forefront of this space. Like we do want to be positioned as great consultants in this space. We don't want we want to be good advocates and ambassadors of our customers, right? So we don't want the confusion to remain, for our customers. We want to stay out there and be good advocates. So we ask our engineers, we ask our designers, we ask our operations teams to educate themselves, right? To read up on these things, to take the courses, to certify themselves in the space of AI certification so that we all become experts within this space. So we're trying to lead by example by all becoming experts in this. And it doesn't change the way we lead, but we try to demonstrate by, making education a little bit more of a consistent, I don't want to say demand, but a
Right.
request of the organization.
So I sometimes have found in organizations that, well, yes, there's everybody kind of wants to jump on the bandwagon and learn about AI, and it's really cool and it's the latest thing. It's like, it's probably the most exciting thing since the internet started, right? Because it is really disrupting everything. And at the same time, there are people in their jobs, in their roles that are feeling like, I'm good with the way things are. I really don't need to change. I really don't like it's great if I want to figure out how to use that to find a recipe online or help me write an email, but I don't want to change the way I'm doing my job every day. Have you found any of that? A little bit of reluctance to change because change is hard.
It is. Change is difficult. People fear what they don't know. I think the leading by example is really the way to go. And I personally take as much opportunity as I can to demonstrate where that makes sense. So, for instance, when I work with our sales team and I'm asking them to create sequences of messaging in their prospecting strategies, for example, that's not an easy task when you're trying to say, okay, you're going to have 10, 15 touch points through your messaging strategy as you're outbound to 15, 20, 30 companies trying to get them to engage with you. As a salesperson, it's not easy to come up with messaging to grab people's attention, but start with AI. But at the end of the day, you still have to put your tone of voice. You still have to bring in your personal dynamic to that thing. So your comfort level at the end of the day it's still you, but you're using this advancement of like getting the hard part out using AI tools, but then gaining the comfort of like you're still at the end of the day, you're that check mark that's making sure it's getting out the door with your blessing and your approval. So, your job security is still there because it still requires a human. Like you're not, there's no fear of this replacing you. In fact, it's enhancing you. It's making you stronger as an individual because it's taking every good part about you and just making it better, making your ability to do what you do stronger. And that's what we're trying to encourage. Just like give you the confidence to say, you do what you do, but maybe you can do it in half the time and actually buy time back. If it took you 4 hours to do these things before, and it might take you 2 now. And you can actually buy time back and do these other things that you would like to get to. So we try to encourage people to just think about them in the positive way versus having to learn something new and that's a burden, but take on something new that allows you more time to yourself or more time to accomplish things that you have in front of you you'd like to do.
Yeah. A lot of people look at AI and they say, let it, like you did, like let it do the initial draft, let it do that heavy lifting for you. From my perspective, I always start the other way is I'll do a draft and then I'll throw that into ChatGPT and I'll say, can you make this make a lot more sense than I just made? And it comes back with something like, yeah, that's what I tried to say. And then I could just tweak it.
Yeah.
But if I try to just put in a prompt to try to get it to create what I want to do, it takes like 8, 9, 10 iterations. But if I just write that draft, even as rough and as not good as it is, if I just write it myself and then throw it in there, then it may be 1 or 2 iterations and it comes out in my voice and what I wanted to say.
That's right. Yeah. And I think it works both ways. Absolutely. And we have some a lot of discussions about that concept. I think it's kind of just been titled prompt engineering is a term we use quite a bit internally, and is really dialing in that prompt engineering strategy. Is nothing is ever answered by one prompt ever
Right.
in AI. So, what is your prompt engineering strategy? You're always going to start with something, but as you learn how to use these tools, you're going to learn what your prompt engineering strategy is. Is it's always a sequence of things because it's always learning how you need it to respond to you as well, and it'll eventually actually pick up. Especially if you're using an account that's you're logged into, and you can actually train these models. You can set your profile to learn more about how you need it to respond to you.
Mhm.
Can actually tweak your profile to say, I need it to always have humor in the way it responds to me, or it needs to have professionalism, or, you can actually tell it to respond to things in certain ways. But yeah, the prompt engineering is absolutely important. And I think it's good to understand your preferred method of doing it and then follow that method continuously.
I think I've interviewed probably 100 people on AI and disruption. I've never heard the term prompt engineering. Is that something you guys came up with internally, or did you hear it somewhere else? I like that.
I couldn't answer that question. The experts in our business have been in as have used it several times with me. So if they termed it, that's amazing. But I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, it's probably one of those things that are out there somewhere, but I have not heard it. But I like that prompt engineering. That's it. I can like see this entire series of courses on prompt engineering.
Yeah. No, it's really great, and I really enjoy talking to our experts about it because they've demonstrated, what things look like, the results look like when you don't do it, and what it looks like when you actually selectively do prompt engineering, and the outcomes are just drastically improved and different when you do it, and it's quite incredible.
So, do you have like a protocol of steps that people take when they're engineering a prompt? Is it like is it a prescriptive thing, or is it just an overall when you're writing prompts, think of these things?
It's a methodology of narrowing, I guess would be my layman's way of putting it. It's like it's knowing how to inform the AI system of deducing what you're trying to get to.
Mhm.
Because in our business, when we're talking about things related to technology, it naturally starts very complex. We're asking it to start with something inherently formulaic or systematic or programmatic, and we're trying to get it to dial into something a little more simplified, and we have to guide it to narrow it down. It's the same concept of like start with an article and get it down to a sentence. We have to guide it to get down to that simple of a result, but it just simply is a methodology of
Mhm.
giving it. I don't want to say it's like talking to a child because it's not that, but it's giving it the yes nos, the this,
Clarity. It's
but add,
clarity.
it's exactly. It's yes, keep this, but then add, change that, or modify this. You're really just kind of guiding it. You're training it, but really when you get down to some of the more detailed emphasis of things, once you get it to a certain layer of results that you're looking for, you've then created the momentum within those results that you can start spitting out all the actual things that you need, which then produce, whether you're creating something written, whether it's for marketing, or you're creating within Copilot, you're creating lines of code.
Mhm.
You can actually take that and put it into your actual code base and start trusting, what you're producing.
So, our listeners love to get leadership insights. So, I want to dive into leadership with you by sharing a quote from your Authority magazine article. And I really like the quote, it resonated with me a lot. You said that I often consider people successful who have had significant positive influences on others, regardless of the impact to the organization's goals. So, let's unpack that a little bit and tell me where that came from.
For me, I think that inherently people have good intentions. And in the demonstration of people's efforts, always leave something behind with others that they are interacting with. And for me, the influence that I have received by other people, I always take away. Like, the way I kind of equate it to, I always try to be a sponge, soaking up as much as I can from the people around me, whether they are leaders that of me or people that look at me as a leader. I try to soak in as much, but there is always the time where a sponge has to be squeezed out. A sponge can only soak in so much. At some point, you have to give back, right? And that's for everybody. Like even the people that I lead give back to me. So my employees always, I learn something from them all the time, but not all the time are the things you're learning inherently serving the organization. Sometimes they just serve the individual to contribute to my growth or my personal advancement and understanding them as an individual. So some of the most influences that I've ever had are people that just helped me understand people better, how to work with people better. But it didn't mean it contributed to more revenue, more operational efficiency, lower cost of the organization. But I, as a human, learned how to work with people better. And that meant more collaboration or more communication, things like that.
So I'm going to push back a little bit on that because I think it does ultimately impact the organizational goals. One example I will give you was when I knew an executive. I was working with an executive and I was coaching him. There were multiple offices, multiple locations in this organization, and I was coaching leaders in various offices. And I was speaking to one of the leaders, and he had this problem to solve, and he's trying to hire someone from the outside to solve this problem. And I said, well, what about so-and-so from this office over here? Isn't she really skilled in that? He goes, yeah, she is, but we don't get along. I'm like, what? And he said, yeah, we just had this falling out one time, and I haven't talked to her in 2 years. So that, because they're not geographically close to each other, they don't have to interact often. It was easier for this executive to just go out and hire someone else than it was for him to handle the conflict, deal with the person, and that is definitely an impact on organizational goals and bottom line.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. I think inherently any improvement individuals have to their kind of own personality and character. It's like the organization benefits from that for sure. It's the indirect benefit as well as the direct benefit too.
Well, what's been the biggest struggle that you have had or have been a part of in your climb up the executive ladder?
That's a good question. I think there's just naturally and always going to be this challenge of this is more of a personal challenge for me, I would say, is I characterize myself as a people leader. I always want to lean into serving the people as much as I possibly can. And I think when you really lean into that really deeply, you can effectively put blinders on occasionally that may make you take your eyes off a little bit about like the business KPIs. You might take your blinders off of a little bit the kind of the nuances of economic drivers and things that otherwise might help you, steer decisions earlier or recognize, economic factors or business factors that you might have to, make shifts. If you're looking at, for instance, recruitment, or if you have to look at like reduction in forces of people, you might choose to say, okay, well, I'm going to hold on to people as long as I can versus, okay, I'm going to staff optimize sooner to make sure my business is in a good place, right? Because you believe that if you work closely with the people that you can recover whatever situation is versus, proactive kind of reductions in force or things like that. So I think as a leader, I tend to lean heavy into the people side of leading an organization. And it's really important for me to also make sure that I balance that with the rest of my leadership team to look at those business KPIs in addition to the people to make sure that we're always balancing those properly. 'Cause I think you need empathetic leaders. I think you need that in the organization, but you also need to balance those with realistic forecasting and business planning and making sure that you're keeping focus on numbers and factors of economy and such. So for me, that's always, I think that's the challenge is sometimes you care too much, and when you lead with your heart, sometimes you gotta you got to reel it back and lead with your brain and your heart at the same time. It's always a hard balance. It's
Have you ever been burned by leading with your heart?
sure. Yeah. It's a, yeah, it's a tough one. Yeah. I've had some ups and downs in organizations where, things like even my personal health has been a factor when, you lead too heavy with your heart, your stress gets impacted. Right. So I've had moments of significant stress in my past in different organizations where my physical health was impacted because my stress levels, I invested too much emotion into what I was doing and allowed that to impact me. So I've learned over time where leadership, you have to recognize a lot of things. You have to be very self-aware, to make sure that you can maintain your level of leadership to people. If you take your eye off your own health, if you take your eye off of, and that means, your mental health, your physical health, you take your eye off of that stuff, you can't lead. You're not in a position to lead if you actually let those things too much out of your sight. So I've learned over time that, you have to keep those things in check to still be a good leader. So that, you lean in too heavy with your heart, you know, you let your stress levels get a little bit too high. You let your health get out of control. Doesn't end up well.
What tips do you have for a leader? Like, how will a leader know? Am I leaning in too hard with my heart? For as someone who has done that and who has been burned by it, what signs would you tell someone to watch for to say, you might be too much in with your heart and not enough on the business side?
I would say if you're staying up at night, I mean, if you're waking up early or staying up at night, if you just have that uncomfortable feeling that things should be going differently, and that there's discussions, but you can't quite put your finger on it. It's just I never talked to. For instance, I just in the last several years have been exposed to finding like a business coach that never took advantage of before.
Mhm.
And it's been just a world of difference for me to just talk these things out. Something feels off. I can't put my finger on it. I talk to my business coach. She helps me understand a little bit more. I come back with a much more clear thinking about what's going on. And I discuss it with my executive team and we solve problems together. So for me, it was a lot more of like, okay, hand raising, something's off, can't pinpoint it. That's my trigger to discuss it. Do I discuss it with my professional coach or do I discuss it with my executive team? Doesn't really matter. But my trigger point was something felt off, and I'm actually now raising my hand and having a discussion about it. So for
Right.
me, that's what it was. It was instead of holding it in, ruminating about it, I can't pinpoint it. So therefore, I don't want to surface it. I'm like uncomfortable bringing it up because I can't actually define it. I actually found someone to talk through it because talking through it actually then allowed me to define it.
What you're saying is really critical because that coach, there's a couple of really positive things that are happening there. First of all, you're noticing the trigger. And once you notice the trigger and you want to raise your hand and say something, so you have some options at that point. You can go internally and you can talk to a colleague and you can talk to your boss. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm.
And talking to someone outside with no other agenda except for helping you see it through. And when I say agenda, I don't mean that in a negative way. It's that if you come to me and I'm HR, I'm going to have an HR mindset when I'm hearing you, and I'm going to be thinking. If you come to me and I'm the CFO of the organization, and you come to me with a problem, it's all going to be clouded. My response, my thinking is naturally going to be clouded by my role as a CFO. Where this coach, their entire focus is you. And so people sometimes think coaching is this remedial thing right before you're going to get fired, so you better get a coach. It is not. It is having that outside perspective so that you can go back in and lead better and as your best self. And that sounds like exactly how you're describing how you're using a coach.
That's right. Yeah. There's just it's clarity and it's prioritization. I mean,
Mhm.
sometimes it's just prioritization of like work and life. Sometimes you just say, okay, is that more important than going home and actually spending time with your family and making sure that takes precedence over this thing you're stressed about at work
Mhm.
or what have you. So a professional business coach sometimes is actually telling you to stop worrying about work, which is actually a really nice thing to hear sometimes. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, your CFO is not gonna tell you that. They might if they're your friend, but most of the time, they're trying to solve business things here with your colleagues or just trying to solve business problems all the time, and in that outside relationship, sometimes it's stronger. So, as we continue and talk a little bit more about leadership before we wrap up, what advice would you give to a leader who is starting maybe early on? Like, because I looked at your LinkedIn profile and you kind of worked your way up, different roles, and when you've left jobs, it's usually been for a step up. I did my homework, and you've been preparing for this role that you have now, and it's not like somebody just handed it to you. You had to work to get there. So, what advice would you have to give someone who's maybe a couple of years behind where you are, but wants to be where you are?
Yeah, and I'm glad you're asking this, and I know I will have audience members that will probably disagree with this because I have people in my own circle that disagree with this. I am a huge advocate of identifying what it is you want to be doing and being willing to lean in and do the things you want, like be doing the things that you want to do in the role you want to be in. Like, don't be afraid to be doing some of the tasks of the role that you want to be in. There are a lot of people who have the idea that if I'm going to do that role or that function, I should be getting paid for that role or that function. Right. But I, in my career, have received a lot of the roles that I've been in because I was willing to actually start doing some of the functions of that role before I was in receipt of that role. I volunteered. I said, let me take on that task. Let me try leading that group of people into this initiative. Don't give me the title, don't give me the full responsibility of the department yet, but let me try taking on that initiative and seeing if I can be successful with that, or let me try taking that client on, or that thing. Or let me try, producing that process or creating that thing. I don't have a problem with that because I want to challenge myself to believe that I'm capable of that. And I don't mind proving it to myself first by offering to voluntarily do those things. Because if I fail at it, it wasn't my job anyway.
Mhm.
Right. But if I'm successful at it, it's kind of a shoe in. Well, you were capable of doing that. Why not just give you that job?
Right.
Right. I'm always willing to lean into the role. And by the time I'm done doing that thing, it's almost like a given. You should be in this role.
And that is actually pure gold. And I don't know who would disagree with you. I've been telling my clients that for years as they're navigating their career growth. And I always refer to them as extracurricular activities. And so, especially in like a large organization, if there's all these boxes that have to be checked off so that you can move up, sometimes there's a leader over here who's working on a project that really sparks your interest. And you just go and say, hey, like, can I help on this? I'll do it on nights and weekends. I just want to be a part of that. And then you're noticed by this leader. And now you have an ally by this leader. And you can sometimes like jump across a lot of those boxes that you have to check years faster because you navigated around instead of just straight up and checking off your boxes and doing what's in your pay grade. You learn, you grow relationships, you get opportunities. It is really a good way to go, and I'm glad to hear that you've been doing that because it's powerful.
Yeah, it is, and you'll find that you might make a few enemies of those that sit complacent and don't try that. That they see you progressing, and what I say is just keep looking forward. Don't look in your rearview mirror. Your career path is yours to own, and not for anybody else to worry about. Right. So just look forward about what you want to be doing, and just try it. Just try what you believe you can do and offer it. Just offer it. And don't worry about getting paid for it because it'll come tenfold to you when you just try and volunteer it. And
Mhm.
trust me, people are watching. People will see it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that person that resents you for it, sometimes like the best way to fix that is once you are in your new role and you're promoted or in your new company, whatever it is, when you get noticed and you move up, sometimes just going back and taking that person with you, offering them their next opportunity is going to build a lifetime relationship that person's going to be loyal to you because you're modeling the way to do it. And then you're honoring a relationship and you're not feeling like you're too good for people. I'm not saying that you have to do that every time, but I'm saying if the opportunity is there, it's a great thing to do.
That's a great point. I love that.
So how could people find you and your company? What is the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, our company, you can find us at vincit.com. It's vincit.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn is probably the best. My LinkedIn is my name, Sean K. Richards. It's SEANK as in Kelly Richards. At the normal LinkedIn URL. I'd love to chat with anybody about topic of leadership. AI, of course, is the hottest topic right now. We can talk for days on that, but yeah, we're in the custom software development and design business, and we can talk days about all of that. So just connect with us. Got a lot of great people in our organization that can talk about business, tech, design, leadership, and just happy to keep the dialogue open with all these great topics.
And we will make sure to have all of the links for how to get in touch with you and your organization in the show notes. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Care to Lead today. If you found this episode valuable and you want to stay updated on our latest interviews, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can find us on your favorite podcast platform. And until next time, remember, leaders who care to lead. Thank you so much, Sean.